So here we are with Jon Meeney, first team head coach, newly appointed at Horsham. Now we're in the break, John. What's your plans for the summer?
Plans for the summer is making sure that the pre-season schedule for Horsham is the best one possible, and player recruitment to aid Horsham with the players that they've already got, and hopefully have a successful season.
So for people that, I think you're a very well-known guy in Sussex and League County football, obviously a high profile. Just to give people a little bit of context on your background, let's just go back a few years and run through your journey as a player and then moving into the coaching side of stuff. So, I've known you for a long time now, obviously going back to our days at the Albion, the good old days.
Absolutely.
I'm right in saying that you were there till you were about 16.
Yeah, that's correct.
And that's when, your time at the Albion ended. Then, you had opportunities to continue at pro clubs. I believe you had the opportunity to go to Bournemouth.
Yes.
What was the story behind that? How did your time at the Albion end as a youngster?
I think it's one of those, just before going into the scholarship, which at the time was a 3-year scholarship, which is now a 2-year scholarship. Like many players, young players coming through the system, I was there for 10 years, but ultimately at that moment in time I wasn't deemed good enough. And that's what football's all about. You get given opportunities. Other times, opportunities are taken away from you. And I had an opportunity to go to Bournemouth when the news was broken to me to go on trial, which Brighton helped me out with. And that they always sort of your numbers, give your numbers out to fellow clubs and that, and see if something can come of it. But at the time, it wasn't right for me as a person, as a young lad. And that's when I decided to go to college and look at the other plan A, which was looking for a career in football with the coaching qualifications.
Like you say, I think a lot of footballers, they leave these pro clubs, or they get a knock back, and that's the end of it for them. Sometimes they want to distance themselves from football, but it's quite unique that you wanted to stay around the game, not so much playing, but you jumped straight into the managerial coaching side of it, which I think is quite a rare thing. I don't think there's many coaches your age that started as young as you did. What was that transition like? Obviously playing at a high level, being fully focused on playing. Was it always in the back of your mind that you wanted to get straight into coaching, or was it something that kind of happened naturally?
Yeah, make no bones about it. I was absolutely devastated when I broke the news that I was sort of deemed not good enough to make the next step in sort of at the time the centre of excellence system. However, I think it depends a lot on you as an individual, your attitude, your emotions about what you do next. You can go one way or the other. So you got the disappointment, but you can show commitment and hoping that there's a good support network around you, that you can look at other avenues. And for me, the transitional period when I sort of left Brighton and went on, I was still playing, for sort of local youth teams, representing my county as well, and college football. However, always on the side, I was doing my coaching badges and had a good support network around me there. But ultimately, I've always watched the game different to my mates. I can't go to the pub and just watch a game and have a beer. I like to study the game. I find it very hard sometimes just to sit there and just watch the game without my coaching head on. But the transitional period was very easy because I always knew the way that I thought about the game and the questions I asked all coaches at all different levels when I was playing certain questions, that it would lead me into coaching some way down the line. But ultimately as well, the way my mind works, I'm not the most technical player. I've probably got better technique, more effective technique now from coaching demonstrations and the way that I study the game and the repetition of being on the training pitch. So I've probably got more effective technique now.
Obviously growing up, playing and being very heavily involved, I know you were a mad Leeds fan. Was there a coach or someone that you looked up to when you were growing up and thought, a lot of youngsters go, I want to be like this player, I want to be like that player, but was there someone that you idolised and wanted to replicate in terms of the managerial coaching side of things that you thought, that's why I want to get into this side of the game?
I think you take snippets of different individuals, and I think that's even now. I always like seeing British coaches being given opportunities. So first and foremost, as much as I read a lot and watch a lot of talk about Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, Mourinho, even going back regarding the leadership that Alex Ferguson, what Arsene Wenger changed at Arsenal. I have big admiration for what Eddie Howe does down at Bournemouth, and Chris Hughton at Brighton. You know, who have both secured their Premier League status. You know, so I always like to look at British coaches and also the influential foreign coaches that have brought so much to our game.
Of course, you know, getting released from Brighton, then going to Chichester College where you began to get your badges and stuff like that. Your first real job within coaching was at East Preston. Can you just tell us a little bit how that came about and what your time at East Preston was? I believe it was Division 2, County Division 2, and you kept them up as an 18, 19-year-old. Was that the story?
Yeah, I was 19, 20. I was playing down at Arundel, so I was doing my coaching on the side, but there was an opportunity to be playing down at Arundel, you know, knew the sort of the group down there, so it ticked a massive box socially for me. So I was just down there playing with some good contacts, and got a phone call from, at the time, my cousin, who was chairman at East Preston. They just departed with their manager for different reasons, and asked if I'd come in and work alongside the reserve team manager and take it to the end of the season, which was like a 4-month period. So for me, it was a big jump, because at the time I had no senior experience, but it was something that I'm a brave individual, and I thought I'd go and tackle and see what I could do.
Just to touch on that, do you think, you know, the current setup is get all your badges and that will equip you with all the tools and the sort of resources that you need to go and manage and coach a football team? Do you think that's necessarily the right methodology? Do you think that jumping in at the deep end and just going and getting some experience is a better option, or do you think it's finding the balance between the two?
At the end of the day, for me, I think it all depends on the individual. Everyone's different, you know. Coaching courses that we all go on, you take a certain percentage of your learning from that, but that only gives you certain aspects of what you need. I think also you have to go and experience the real world, the real life, and I think that's when your percentage goes up regarding your learning experience by being actually on the job. So coaching courses are brilliant. You know, the people that you meet, you know, the information that they give you, it's a great experience, and you take certain aspects from that. But I think the balance is you've got to be out there, and you've got to be doing it, you've got to be living it for yourself, you've got to be making mistakes, you know, and learning from those mistakes with a good support network around you, you know. So I think it all depends on the individual, but there's only one way of getting experience, and that's by sometimes putting yourself into that environment, into that situation, coming out your comfort zone and growing outside your comfort zone.
Just to summarise that, if you were to rewind your clock, rewind time, or to give advice to a new up-and-coming young coach like yourself a couple of years ago, what route would you have done things any differently, or would you have stuck to the route where you just jumped straight?
I'd stick to what I've done. I'm very happy on who I am today as a person, manager / coach. You know, I think this is my journey. I've made mistakes, but I feel that I'm an honest individual that learns from my mistakes. You know, I listen, I communicate, you know, but I also go out there and do it, which I think is a good balance. I'm not perfect, but I think what you've got to do is any young coach coming into it, get your head down, work hard, work smart, surround yourself with good people, and never be afraid to ask questions, and sometimes just listen, because listening and watching is a life-free subscription that you don't have to pay for.
Very true, John. Good advice to a young coach out there if anyone's listening. So, coming away from East Preston, you got the call from Chris White to join back up with Worthing as the first team coach, who, you know, a massive job. How old were you at that point? Was it 21, 22?
Just turned 20.
You know,
turned 20.
A first team coach in the Ryman South at 20 years old is some achievement, in my opinion. Definitely, I don't know many youngsters who have that on the CV. What was it like going into such a high level of football at such a young age? I bet that you learned so much at such a young age, and obviously Chris White gave you the opportunity. How did that story come about?
It was just, like I say, like anything, you sort of talk about networking, you know, like contacts. Obviously, stumbled across Chris. Obviously, I knew who Chris was, but stumbled across him as a person in conversation. And I remember it was a conversation down at Sussex headquarters, down at Calder Road. We were watching a game down there, as you always do. But ultimately, we had a bit of conversation, and it just materialised from that. Really got invited into training, and I remember my first training session, and honestly, I felt as if I was on trial. Yeah. I felt I was on trial, back being like a trial when you're on trial as a player.
Do you get the same nerves? As a player, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. When you step into a new club, not just on trial, maybe you have the contract agreed already, you have the deal in place, but you go in and you feel a certain amount of nerves, you have to impress. Do you get that same feeling from coaching?
Yes, yeah, and probably sometimes a little bit more. As much as you trust your ability and you do your work, you do your planning, you're preparing. Ultimately, like you do what you do on the training pitch, the workshop. And when it comes to that stage, that Saturday, ultimately you can't control it on the pitch. You've got to trust your players, trust what you've done during the week. Yes, you've got to be proactive and reactive on the sideline, but you can't actually go out there and fix it. But going back to my first training session, it was nerve-wracking. Don't get me wrong, because you've got a 20-year-old coach coming in who hasn't really achieved anything in the game. Well, I haven't got a name. I haven't really had a professional background. Everyone's had an affiliation to like a centre of excellence or an academy back in the day. Everyone's had a period at Brighton or other academies. So I've achieved nothing. Who is Jon Meeney? And rightly so. I'm sure some of the players actually question that. But I went in, and as much as nerve-wracking, I just had to stay true to, at the time, what I believed in and my coaching methods, and hopefully that gained the respect of the individuals, which I think it did. Otherwise, I wouldn't have stayed at Worthing for the rest of the season there and continued the journey. But it was a great learning curve, and trust me, I come out of my comfort zone there.
Of course, like when you put these sessions on, especially as a youngster, do you look for feedback immediately from players if they enjoyed the session? Can you tell without asking any questions if they got a lot out of the session, if they enjoyed the session?
Yeah.
Have you ever put sessions on where you thought, okay, that isn't as I didn't get as much out of the players there as possible? What would you do the following session?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you always talk about planning and preparing your delivery of your session, and you're evaluating. So when I do my evaluation, which people might think is a bit busy.
For each session, do you do that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And games. And games, no matter what session you put on, now people might think that's busy, but I want to be the best that I can be, and that's my champion mentality. Ultimately, self-evaluation first, because you can look at your players and look at individuals, look at units, look at your team, but first and foremost, I'm the leader of the train within that session and that game. So I've got to look at me, what went well, even better if. Little 3-moment diaries of things that I thought went well, things that I would do differently. Once I've evaluated myself, I'll speak to my fellow peers. So that's people I'm working alongside in the management team, but also players. Am I doing too much? Am I doing too less? Am I giving you what you need as an individual? Am I giving you what you need as a unit? Am I giving you what you need as a team? Are you enjoying the sessions? Are you thinking it's tedious? Because we've got to remember is a lot of players in the lower leagues, they have jobs, they have families, they have kids. So you talk about doing physical work, you talk about doing technical work, you talk about doing tactical work. Ultimately, they want to come to a session where someone's they let off some steam. So it's got to be bright, it's got to be bright, vibrant. It can't be too much standing around because of the contact time that you get. So you've got to make it worthwhile. So I always say, I want players to want to come to training, and I want them to come to games and want to play for me, want to work with myself. So I want them to enjoy it socially, but I want them to get something out of it. I want them to learn. So if they can get the enjoyment and they can take something from the session where they see that there's a key learning focus to it that's relevant to them, they could be as an individual, that personal touch, but as a team, I think it's massive. So I just want it to be bright and vibrant for them.
Talking about bright and vibrant sessions, keeping the sessions fresh, do you have a book back home, a black book, where you have all your sessions that you've ever done and you can just refer to them? How do you go out and look for new sessions, new ideas now? Do you use YouTube? Are there any secrets to it? Can you give young up-and coaches any insight, any information from where you get your sessions from and how you can keep it fresh and vibrant for your players?
Absolutely. What I will allude to first and foremost is I do go on YouTube. I do watch a lot of football. So on my phone, on my laptop, there's a lot of clips from like Match of the Day, Monday Night Football games that I'm watching where I can pause it at the end. I record every game that I'm watching on TV, and if I think there's any sort of relevant points that I can use for myself, but also my players, it's a visual aid. But I do go on YouTube. I do go and watch a lot of games, a lot of coaching sessions in my free time. What I don't do is I don't copy other coaches. I don't copy other managers. I might like something and go, yeah, do you know what, I use that. However, I've got to understand it. Of course, a lot of people, a lot of coaches out there, which is the naivety of it. you know, and I'll be truly honest with you, is they see a session or they see something that Pep Guardiola's doing or Mourinho's doing, or they get these little clips on YouTube and they go, oh, I'm going to go and do that with my team, if that's in youth football at senior level. But what you've got to realise, is it relevant to what your senior team needs or your young players need? But actually, do you understand it? Because if you don't understand it, how do you think you're going to get your message across to your audience?
That's a great point.
You know, so what I do is I look at everything. You've got to be dynamic. You've got to be open, but at the same time, you've got to make your mind up. You've got to understand what you're planning. You've got to understand what you're delivering. You know, because if you do, the players have a good chance.
100%.
But it's got to be relevant to who they are and what you are.
No, of course you can't take something that Pep's doing with players that are on 100 grand a week at City and think that your players who are playing county level are going to get the same experience out of it.
It's a different world. The art of management and coaching is, what you've got to look at is, right, what are our qualities, what are our strengths, what are the areas that I feel we need improving, and you've got to make it as basic as possible, which we all struggle with at times, even myself. But simplicity is genius. But you've got to understand within your group their characteristics and their player profile, but the level that you're out. Don't coach them what you know, coach them what they need to know.
Yeah, it's a great point. Well said, John. So obviously jumping back straight into your journey, you know, first team coach, Ryman South football. Then you went back to East Preston, a bit of chop and change. I believe you had a player coach role. What was the thoughts and theory behind that? Was it just that you felt that you had more to give on the pitch, or was it you missing the game?
Yeah, I'll be honest, the opportunity come about because at the time Chris White had departed Worthing. I held it on a caretaker basis, and the club was just going through obviously a little bit of a change, and I felt the time was right, was just to come out of the Worthing environment at the time, and Dom, who's currently Horsham manager that I'll be working with obviously next season, offered me an opportunity to come in, keep my hand in coaching, which I really appreciate. So when I went over there, I started doing the coaching, and at the time they had like a lot of games which you do in the county Premier, where you get postponements. They were playing like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Yeah. So he said, "Look, can you sign a card?" Yeah, cool, of course I can. So get my hand in, yes, the coaching, but then I ended up playing like the last 10 games of the season. So it was nice just to get back out there. Sometimes just get out there and play, and actually sometimes not forget the world of coaching, but the pressures of sometimes what comes with being manager and coaching, and just go and play. So it was nice to have the balance.
So it was more of just like, you know, trying to help the club survive
any way I
point.
can. Any way I can.
I think that says a lot about your character. You weren't just stuck to one role. It was just, you know, my goal is to keep this club above the water, and if that means me slotting in as a right back or as a, you know, on the pitch, then that's what you have to do. I think that says a lot about yourself, John. I mean,
thank you.
Coming away from East Preston once again, back to Worthing with Adam Hinchelwood. Let's just touch on that. Adam Hinchelwood this year has just been a breath of fresh air at Woodside Road. The job he's done is exceptional. You know, taking a team that was struggling. It was struggling, you know, bottom of the league, and I believe they finished 13th. Might be wrong there. Went on a great run of games towards the end of the year. Brought a lot of good players in. You know, what's your relationship like with Adam? Obviously, he was at the Albion as well. What's your thoughts on Adam as a coach?
Hell of a lot of respect. You know, I get on with Adam off the pitch. You know, I've worked with Adam as his assistant. So I've always seen the potential that Adam's got, and I think he learnt a lot from his first spell as manager at Worthing. Went to the Albion, you know, and had a good couple of years there with the 18s, back in that professional environment. And I believe now he's come back to Worthing, and everything that he's learnt in the past, he's now delivering at Worthing. He's done an absolute tremendous job with the club. You know, where they were and where they are now is credit to him. It's credit to the players that he's got in, and also the work of the board and the volunteers behind the scene. Everyone's contributed, but Adam's been the leader of the ship and deserves all the accolades that obviously he's got this year. All the praise, and it's just nice when I look at Worthing now. I see that they've returned to their identity. It's a bright, vibrant place where people of all ages want to come and watch the game. You know, there's an affiliation again between obviously the management, players and the fans, and the way they're playing the game is the identity that I believe in and like to think I put certain seeds in place. But Adam and the boys have taken it to the next level, and they deserve all the positive energy that's coming their way.
Obviously, you know, as a senior coach at Worthing Football Club, you had a lot of success, but you were also heavily involved in the academy. Can you just give us an idea about how the academy was run when you were there, and the transition from, you know, taking boys from the youth setup and bringing them into the first team?
No, actually, after the first season as manager, alongside obviously Gary, the success we had, we were in talks behind the scenes about doing more at the club, really building something, putting in good foundations that will aid the longevity of the club. Now, the conversations I had was I went full time as first team manager, but also head of football development. And what that entailed is, as much as we had an under 18 side, a youth side, it was about really targeting like 7s to 16s, you know, a foundation phase and a youth development phase. And we created a Worthing Development Centre where we had a development phase and an elite phase, where we felt that we were looking to work with local grassroots clubs, you know, players, coaches, and just provide extra training sessions and extra games that they could come under the Worthing umbrella, be part of, using the facilities, working with first team players, first team management in myself, Gary Elphick, Matt Piper, and just create like a football hub for Worthing, you know?
No, it makes complete sense. I know obviously coaching kids and player development, especially at a young age, is very close to your heart and something that you've got a wealth of experience in. Just to summarise, what would be your philosophy in coaching kids and coaching youth football? What are the key values that you try and implement into your sessions? Not just your sessions, but, you know, when you're taking a kid from 7-year-old all the way up to 16, 18, what are the main things that you try and encourage them and try and, you know, get out of them as a player?
I think the biggest thing for me, doesn't matter what level you're playing at, you want to be there, you know, so you want to enjoy it, you know. So talk about being bright and vibrant. I want my sessions to be bright and vibrant. I don't want them to be tedious. I want players to have smiles on their faces at all ages and want to be part, like I said, of that environment. So you always look at it socially first, trying to get the right dynamics, the right relationships. But for me, with kids starting like at 6 and 7, you know, working your way up in the foundation phase, I always look at, they've got to have a ball at their feet. They've got to have a ball at their feet. You talk about ball mastery, that ball manipulation, you know, enjoying having lots of touches of that ball, which is the best friend alongside your teammates in space, and then developing them regarding their foot patterns. You talk about a ball, but also how they move. So I'm looking at more physical and technical. With the physical, and that, I'm not talking about strength and power at that age. I'm talking about agility, balance, coordination, speed, as well as the foot patterns in how they move within a game. So just including in your sessions little snippets where you're introducing them to different areas of the pitch, different positions on how they move, but then flipping it onto the technical work where they've always got a ball at their feet and they're developing that ball manipulation, and then testing that in 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s and 4v4s, which brings everything out. Everything out. Everyone's constantly involved. You've even got decision making to make in 1v1s, in 2v2s, in 3v3s, 4v4s. You've got overloads, you've got underloads, you've got transition, and sometimes you can just let the game go and just guide and direct players and let them discover it for themselves. You can pose questions, they can show you the answers by talking, by doing it, by showing you, but they're all involved. So it's like a micro version of what's to come.
Obviously, it varies from academy to academy and club to club. Are there any great flaws or improvements that you think would create a drastic change in terms of the model and setup of academies? Are the kids training too much? Are they not training enough? Is there anything that you can think of off the top of your head that you could think, actually, if we did that, I think we'd be able to get better improvement out of the players and better player development?
For me, when you talk about the young players' workload, I always love being in. Even when I was a young player, I wanted to train. I wanted to play. If I wasn't within the professional environment, I'll be playing on the street. I'll be down the park. I think every individual's sort of different. I think you've got to get the balance, But I think if you brought them in, well, a lot of players are in now sort of 4 or 5 times a week. You know, some people might say that's too much, some might say it's too less. If you bring them in 2 days a week, everyone then says, hey, we're not getting enough contact time. I think it's got to be what works for you. So I think you've got to take each environment on its own merit. But ultimately, I think when you're in that environment, there's got to be lots of a support network. There's got to be lots of communication. So you communicate with the player, you communicate with the obviously the parents, you communicate with other coaches. You know, there's lots of staff now at academies, and I think sometimes kids have just got to enjoy being kids. So like at the highest level, if a player wasn't performing for you or looked physically and mentally fatigued, what would you do at senior level? You'd bring them out for a game. You might say, do you know what, have the night off training, have the day off training, where they do light work or just maybe go and experience something else. So what's different with the younger players? Yes, they haven't got that maturity and they sometimes can't make their own decisions, but that's where you've got to maybe then use your experience, what you learn on coaching courses, from everyday life and communicating with the support network, that you make the best decision for that person and that player at that time, and believe in it.
It's a great point. Obviously, you touched on briefly there about parents and stuff, and there's a lot of talking points when it comes to obviously youth football and the role of a parent. As you know, what's your thoughts on it? Do you think that parents should be? What sort of input should they have in their kids' career, a journey as a football player? You know, on the sidelines, you hear a lot of guys saying, "Okay, they shouldn't be saying anything." You know, when you coach youth football, do you have rules and regulations in place where you say, "Look, parents, I don't want you saying anything," or can they communicate with their kid when the game's going on?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I think first and foremost, like rules and regulations, talk about code of conduct. That's got to be set from the word go, because if you do it from the word go, then there's no excuses. You know, they parents or any individual can't come back at you. If you set the rules and regulations, that code of conduct from the word go, they know what they're signing up for. There can be no grey area. I think parents' input is always encouraged because they're with the person. Forget the player, it's a person. They're with that person 24/7, you know. So you have to encourage their feedback. But as I always say, you're coaching the kids, but you're managing the parents. You know, sometimes their expectations. The biggest thing for me, while they're in the environment that I'm leading, or any coach, I think it's important that they trust you, because for that period of the time, you know, you're like the parent. You know, you're the teacher. You know, like it is when it's at school. When they're in the school's company, the teacher is in charge, in control of that class. So what they say sort of goes for that period. So what's the difference? You know, you've got to trust that coach's profession. Now we will make mistakes, you know, but hopefully over time we make more good decisions and do more good than not good to the person and the player. So you've got to trust the environment that you're taking your child to, and trust me that this is my profession, this is what I work for. I'm going to do the best I possibly can to have a positive influence on your child's sort of life, but also playing side of his life.
Well said. I mean, going back to Worthing, obviously we went a little bit off track there with the youth stuff, which I think is important. I think a lot of people listening to this will be very interested in your views as a youth coach. Going back to Worthing, especially the first team, you had great success, and it almost felt like it peaked. You know, you had some unreal players there, the likes of Omar, Kane Wills, Lloyd Dawes, Will Hendon, some superb talent. A lot of whom have gone on to, you know, higher level, and they're still involved in Sussex football. And absolutely. Omar, I don't know him personally, but obviously very interested in his story, where he went to Forest Green, and I think I saw something actually online yesterday where he's actually parted ways with Forest Green. Are you still in contact with Omar? Obviously, he's got to be one of the better players that you've coached in your time. Yeah,
I take each player on like I said, on their own merit, you know. But I like to think I've got a very good relationship with past players, you know, where maybe I've earned their respect, they've earned my respect, and I'll always be there for anyone, you know. And we had some really good times at Worthing. But all those players that you just mentioned previously, I'm still in contact. Obviously, I've worked with 3 of them at Eastbourne Borough this year, but I'm always there for Omar on and off the pitch, you know. And like I say, Forest Green, it's football. He's no longer part of their plans. That's football. For me, it will be a miss to them. But now what Omar's got to do, with obviously his support network, he's now got to go and get that next club. It's big for him, because he's got to go into an environment where, for me now, he can go and play consistently. and be the main man that I believe that he is.
Yeah.
So he needs an opportunity, say like at the conference level, you know, play that for a season, but play that consistently, you know, and really start to again take his career to the next level. But that's what he needs, like any player, they need to play consistently. So he needs to find the right environment, you know. He will work hard and smart at his game, because everyone knows Omar, he makes sacrifices, he lives, breathes, sleeps the game, everything. But what he's got to do now is just take some time out, get that next club right, and try and go in there and be the main man, but play consistently, you know. But with them group of players, you know, they gave me everything during their time. However long I was working with them, they gave me everything, and they fully deserve to all be playing at a higher level. But there was so much potential at Worthing when you go through the team, you know, through the squad, and you even look at some of them now who are now in Worthing's first team that Hinch has given opportunities to. They're now getting the benefits of previous management, but also their game's going to the next level with the new management. But you were spot on. We had some real good times. We hit a peak. You know, talk about a curve. You know, we was at that top of the curve, and it started when we lost Omar, and we had other.
You had a cup run before.
Yeah,
then,
the FA
really
Trophy.
well
Yeah, we went
cup
16
run.
games unbeaten, including the FA Trophy. You know, we was at the top. You know.
Then what happened? Obviously, it did as quickly as you, like you say, as quickly as you can gain momentum, you can lose it. So
Football's about moments. Football's about moments. You know, we had momentum, we had confidence, we were functioning, we were getting results. We felt we was unbeatable. You know, but you always analyse and go, right, what if this happened? You know, you try and prepare, you try and be proactive. Sometimes you have to just react there and then. Now, what we had is after that FA Trophy run come to an end, we was at the top of that curve. You know. And it's, in football, it's either going to go again or it's going to start to bend.
Yeah.
And as quick as you can get momentum going that way, you could quickly be brought back down. And at the time, we lost Omar Bougel, you know, never going to stand in his way because he deserved that opportunity. Omar goes out, you've got to replace him. Now, you're never going to replace Omar like for like, but what we need to do with wages that were freed up, etc., was to try and bring in one or two players that could try and help the squad, you know, manage that budget, you know. But ultimately, at the time of losing Omar, we also had other injuries, you know. We played Sutton, and we didn't have Jack Cook, we didn't have Zach Newton, we didn't have Will Hendon, you know, three players that would start for the 11. Yeah. So for such a young side, where we didn't have the strength in depth, we had 13, 14 players that first and foremost you could rely upon straight away, like core players. We'd lost 4 of them, some to injury, you know, and obviously losing Omar, who was like 2 players. So all of a sudden, you then, where we dripped in young players, and I'm all for giving young players an opportunity, we then had too many to sort of come in and keep that momentum going forward. There was going to be a dip, you know, because all they coming in, they've still got to get used to, obviously, that first team competitive environment. It's right coming in from the odd game from time to time, I drip them in, bring them back out. You chuck them straight in, all of a sudden it's new pressures, which I've got to manage, you know. I've got to give them the confidence and the bravery to keep going. You've got to manage, obviously, their preparation. You've got to manage their recoveries. You've got to work with them regarding their temperament, you know, work with them their game nous, the physicality. But when things go the other way, young players haven't got the strategies to be able to deal with what's going on. Why is it going wrong, you know?
Like you say, obviously great success, and then, you know, after that it followed like a hard time at Worthing. You know, it was where it was tough on the field. You know, we were struggling to get results, struggling to win games. It happened very quickly. What did you learn from that experience? Obviously, it ended how it ended, and we'll touch on that in a minute. But going through that period when you know, you're winning, and then you're turning up and you're getting beat, and you're getting beat. What do you, as a coach, you know, a little bit of a message to coaches watching, what do you have to then focus on? Is it player management? Is it just getting the tactics right? Obviously players weren't available to you, so you know, how big of a part is that, you know, turning up and in the back of your mind knowing you might not have the personnel, but you've got to still remain positive. What was that like, that period?
I think first and foremost, recruitment. You talk about, as I said, alluded to, the curve. It's as much as you've got that upward curve, you've got to make sure already you're trying to be as proactive as possible and getting ready for when the curve drops. Have you got things in place? Moving on from that, how many times can you get your starting 11 out during the course of a season? So it's okay when everything's hunky-dory, you know, and you've got momentum and confidence and you've got that team that you want to start, you can get them out week in, week out, and the odd players to sort of come in if need be. But ultimately, are you prepared for if something was drastic to happen? You know, how are you then going to be prepared for that? So that all goes together. When we did embark on that little downward spiral for a time that become a bit of a rut, it's straight away you can make drastic changes. You can try and think, well, I've got to come up with something really here. The biggest thing is you've got to maintain confidence in what you're doing, but you might have to strip it back slightly, you know, and go back to the brilliant basics. So know what your principles of play are, what your values are, but understand the situation that you're in, why you're in it, and what you need to do. And the best thing to do is go back to the brilliant basics. Get yourself a platform. Get everyone working hard, working smart, staying together, being in the game to give yourself a springboard within the game. Because then the longer you're in a game, the more confidence that you will breed, you know, affect individuals, affect units, affect the team, you know, by being positive, you know, try and make them feel as if they are a Ballon d'Or winner, you know. I think it's so important, but don't neglect the brilliant basics, how you set your team up, attacking and defending. Go back to those basics and give the players the confidence, but do it by using simple, clear messages. But try and make them feel like world beaters, Ballon d'Or winners. We're all in this together, starting with yourself. Don't go around being negative, because when you're losing games, it brings you down. You've got to try and uplift them, so you've got to make your training sessions again bright and vibrant, you know, and just literally treat each game on its own merit, you know. And then, like I say, football, it turns. It could be a tone setter in training. Any given moment in a training or in a game could be the moment that sparks an individual and the team, and you've got to hold on to that.
100%.
You've got to hold on to that.
On paper, it looked like such a good partnership with you and Gary, and you know, you did have a lot of successes. I think Gary brings certain aspects to the game, and you bring certain aspects as a coach, and together, for me, it would work perfectly. You know, I think Gary will one day go on to be a manager and a coach again, and I'm sure he'll have massive success. Do you want to touch briefly on what happened? You know, we went through that rut, and then it ended with you stepping away from the club.
Yeah.
What was that? What happened there? For people that, you know, a lot of people probably watching this know what happened, what was put out. But what were your thoughts and feelings on that? How did it end?
I'll be honest. My time at Worthing come to a premature end. I never wanted to sort of leave Worthing. It was never in my mind. You know, what I was looking to do was stay up, get that status in the Ryman Premier, which is now the Bostik Premier. But everything that I learned from that first season back in the Premier Division, you know, what went well, even better if we were putting things in place ready for that next season, where actually we can really be judged and try and have a more progressive season, be more competitive and progressive for the long haul. Unfortunately, the club were not going to have two managers the following season. You know, Gary and I had a conversation. We're both our own men. Obviously, I think in hindsight, we'd like the partnership to continue, because, like I say, I thought we had the perfect balance. However, when Gary and I had a conversation and then went to the board about there's only going to be one manager this year, which is for different reasons, it was put to the board, you know. There was a lot of to-in and fro-in, you know, about obviously myself backing Gary and Gary backing myself, and ultimately, after a lot of to-in and fro-in and decisions going backwards and forwards, it was decided that Gary was going to be the man that took Worthing forward in the next campaign, you know. And the board made that decision, you know. As much as there was to-in and fro-in before that, where I stay, Gary, whatever, but ultimately, when it did come down to it, obviously Gary got the opportunity, and I was never going to stay as a first team coach, because for me, I had too much of an affiliation as being manager. I've done a hell of a lot of work at that club, from senior level to the 18s to the development centre. So I was never going to back down. I was always going to back myself, and to this day still back myself. But ultimately, I believed Gary would go on and look to get the right recruitment and get them as best prepared for the next season, and I'll go on to a new chapter. And at the time, I had no clue where I was going to go.
Like I say, like, it happens in football all the time. It's
that's
very
football.
rare for,
that's football,
for
you
something
know.
to last forever. Like Gary's gone on and he had a massive part in Burgess Hill. Like I watch a lot of their games in keeping them up, you know, keeping their run in Premier status. He played a massive part in that. And obviously, you took a lot of time, or not a lot of time, but you took a bit of time out of the game, and then a great opportunity opened up at Eastbourne Borough. You know, going up to National League South with Jamie Howe. How did that opportunity arise, and how's your time been at Eastbourne Borough?
I'll be honest. Obviously, I'd interviewed for another job during that time out, which I was waiting for. I think a lot of people knew what job that was, but unfortunately, I didn't get the job at the time. Again, that's football. And then it just literally come out of the blue, really, where I was talking with Jamie, because I've known Jamie for a good few years, always go to him for advice, and when you're talking about future opposition, we'd exchange scout reports. And ultimately, he invited me into Eastbourne Borough. So I went in there towards the end of pre-season, just sort of dipping in, dipping out, doing what I can, you know, shadowing Jamie. Got him more and more involved in sessions, and when the season started, I was appointed first team coach. So during like a little period, like another little trial period, it sort of progressed, and I'll be forever grateful to Jamie, especially.
Is he someone that you not? I don't want to use the word idolise or use as a role model, but is he someone that you look at and you think, okay, he's had a lot of success in the game. I want to kind of take little snippets of what he does and apply it to your. Yeah,
absolutely. I have like I say, come up against Jamie as a fellow manager, but he's always someone I've respected, you know, on and off the pitch, and my respect has gone up for him again immensely, because I believe I have a friend off the pitch, but I've now worked with him, and I can see why he's had success in the past, and I really hope he has success at Eastbourne Borough, because he is the right man for the job. You know, and I've worked with him a lot this season. I've probably seen him more than his wife, you know, travelling over with himself to Eastbourne and other coaching commitments. So I've really got to know sort of Jamie on a personal note, and we've shared our sort of our methods, our way of work, and I think he placed a lot of trust and ownership in me at Eastbourne this year, and I've learnt a hell of a lot from Jamie. The rest of the management team there, Danny, Dean Lightwood, Ian St Pember, who are great for the non-league circuit. You know what I mean? Good gentlemen, but worth their weight in gold on what they do on the pitch, and ultimately I've had a really sort of good year of personal development, learning the National League South, you know, what you've got to do consistently at that level. I picked up valuable experience, to which now, if you look at it and you look at the lower league, talk about Conference, National League South, you talk about the Bostik Premier and the Bostik South, I like to think now, I know in my mind what you need to do to be competitive in each of the respective leagues on their own merit.
Can you elaborate on that? I mean, obviously, you've done well in Environment South, Bostik Premier, now National League South. What is, okay, first question, the level of football, the standard of football, what's different? Is it more physical in certain leagues? Is there a big difference? Is there not so much of a difference?
I think there is. In every step that you make, the leagues do get harder. You know, for me, the level of class as people improves. You know, ultimately, the managerial and the players, it all improves with each level. That's why they're there. You know, you do see, I think, you see good technical players at any level, you know, and there's certain individuals that can make the step up, you know, but you can't just rely upon technique. The physicality goes up.
That does play
you talk about strength, you talk about power, you talk about pace, you know. For me, that improves, not just regarding individuals, but just the whole state of play.
Does that mean that to get to that higher level, you have to have them athletic attributes, or can just so you're saying technical ability can't get you to that level, or is it?
It's
you
a balance.
Need a balance.
It's a balance within the team.
Yeah, okay.
You know, you need a balance within the team, because I'm all for technical players. I love technical players. You know, but for those technical players to play, you know, there's some technical players that have got good game now, good game intelligence, have a good form of physicality. When I talk about physicality and I talk about game intelligence, you can be the biggest player going. You could have the strength, you could have the power, but you don't know how to use it. You haven't got the intelligence to use it. You know, so it's a balance, knowing how to use your body, but also how to fuel your body, what to put in you. what to put in your body. So, but for a team to function, you need your technical players. But for them technical players to shine, you need the balance. You need players. You need that army around them. You know what I mean? To give yourself a platform. But each level you go at, there's technique there. There's technical players there. You know, there's players that have got good game nous on and off the pitch. Management teams, but you've got good game nous. That could be from players that understand the game from a younger age, players coming down from the higher leagues, and players that have developed within that certain level. You've got to have game nous. That game management. But you talk about technical game nous. You know, you talk about the physicality. But the mentality in each level that you go up, it is stronger. It is stronger. It's not weaker. It's stronger. You know, and that's why they stay there. So they either stay there or go on.
Looking at this season, obviously Billericay and Dulwich going up into that National League South. How do you think they'll fare? Obviously Billericay have a huge backing. So Dulwich have the support and the community around it's incredible. I'm sure they'll rally around each other. And how do you see them two faring in that league next year? Obviously you've experienced it. What do you reckon?
First and foremost, utmost respect for Dulwich Hamlet. You know, and I'm not just talking this year. They've had their troubles this year. You know, they've had their troubles. I know all about that because of Irving. But they've had their troubles this year. It's about time Dulwich Hamlet got what they deserve. Because alluding back to when I talk about the characteristics needed to progress through each level, you look at Dulwich, they've got a bit of everything. They've got balance. So you look at them, first and foremost, socially, great group. Whoever's part of Dulwich, they want to be there. For the management, for the fans, and for each other, the team. Alright? So you've got that social. Secondly, they have a form of physicality. They've got strength, they've got power, they've got athleticism. They've got that in abundance. You know, they've got that in abundance. They've got players that can handle a ball. They've got good technical players, game changers, who can produce that quality in what the management team are asking them to do. But they've also got the game now. So they've been in these situations of the playoffs, you know, the last couple of seasons. Of
course, they've been there or thereabouts.
They've been there. So they've got the game now so that they understand that. But the management team as well, huge respect, because they've assembled that and they've maintained those clear messages, and they've got good nous, good tactical nous, but all how to manage the group at the level. They know the level. My
question to you is: do you think that there will be a lot of change and transition in terms of player personnel in the summer, or do you think them two sides that they're different class at Boston Premier level? Do you reckon they could jump into that National League South and compete, or do you think that there has to be some recruitment going on in the summer?
I think there's always recruitment. How much is down to you. Now the managers of the respective clubs are going to know what they need. You know, they're going to analyse their squad, which I'm sure they've done already, and go, right, we need this, we need that, we need to be better at this, we need to be better at that. They know that. I can't say that. Ultimately, what I will give the example of is when I look at what Braintree have done this year. You know, they had an affiliation with last year, the manager and some of the players at the start of the season, Enfield.
Of course,
in the Boston Premier. You know, so I think they will take, if you look at it, Dulwich, Billericay, but especially like I say Dulwich, they may take inspiration from what Braintree have done. You know, I think both sets of teams will do recruitment. How much is down to them. I think, like I say, Billericay, yes, they've got good financial strength, and they may go again with that. If they do that, it's down to them. Fair play, because you can go and spend the money. How you get that team to function, you know, there's an art to it, because you've got to manage that. With Dulwich going up, I hope everything sorts itself out off the pitch. But they deserve to be there, and they may take inspiration on what Braintree have done. But I think they're well equipped with what they've got. But you always add them key personnel to improve what you've got.
That's a fair point. So let's bring it back to today then. Obviously, you've parted ways with Eastbourne Borough, and you've joined back up with Dom at Horsham as first team coach. I believe he is the first team manager.
Yes.
So your roles and responsibilities will be slightly different. I'm sure that there's something between you and him. How did that relationship come? How did the opportunity come? And like you say, I think you've gained so much, a wealth of experience across all the leagues, that now you can, I saw a tweet you put out the other day about maybe taking a step back a little bit in terms of level. We're going down to county football now, but this gives you a great, there's not many people in county football who have the recent and relevant experience that you have. So how are you going to implement that, starting off with pre-season right now,
absolutely,
and going forward? And what just to touch on that also, what are your goals for Horsham this year?
I'll be honest, I'm probably more infused than I ever have been at this current time.
To be at,
It is. I really buy into, obviously, like Dom's the manager and I'm going in there as head coach, because I feel that's where I am at this moment in time. I'm a head coach, and I think you see in the game, you talk about managers, in the game you're seeing more head coaches, people that are hands-on on the training pitch, preparing their team.
Because there is a difference between a manager and a coach.
Yeah, and that's me.
Yeah.
Where do I want to be? Where's my workshop? My workshop's the training pitch. That's where I want to be. And then the stage is the stadium on a Saturday or a Tuesday. And for me, Dom being manager and myself being head coach, both of us playing our roles the best we can, because that's where our qualities lie, I think brings a balance, a bit like Gary and myself had. Yes, it is a step, 2 divisions below National South, going into the Bostik South. Obviously, it's a 1 above county.
Bostik South.
But going into the Bostik South. But I see it as a step forwards, because I want to be part of something that I feel is heading in the right direction. Now, I'm not putting any time scale on it. However, I think we could show progression at Horsham. They're moving into a new ground, which is currently being built.
Yeah, do you have an update on that? Is it you're starting the season at Culver Road?
Starting at Culver Road, and then I believe, if all well and good, touch wood, we look to move in, I believe, in October. But the stadium, they've started building the stadium and the 11v11 and the 9v9 pitches, which is great. But what I see at Horsham is a little bit similar to what I sort of had at Worthing, you know. But for myself as an individual, I see more scope at Horsham, where I currently am. And from what I've learned over the last sort of 4 years especially, I feel I'm in a very good place to help lead it in my role as head coach alongside Dom. And I will never have no qualms in dropping a level to take steps forward if the club resembles my personality and my ambitions, my identity. And I feel the reason of leaving Eastbourne Borough now to come to Horsham and in with Dom is the ownership that I'm going to have on the playing model. That's what excites me. That's the challenge that I need at this moment in time, you know, to implement that football model as head coach into Horsham, to get that team functioning, to get that team progressing, and get that team being as competitive as possible. And there's no time scale on that, but if we're competitive and we're progression and we're better organised, then that will give us a platform.
So in this summer break, what's your, what are you doing on a day-to-day? Is it purely player recruitment, planning for pre-season?
Yeah.
Is that what's filling your day at the moment?
Absolutely, yeah. It's nice. I've got a little bit of sort of time off, a couple of free days, and ultimately at this moment in time, it is pre-season schedule is done.
Right, it's done already.
But now it's about chaining the training to the schedule, getting the right balance, so we're actually meeting and catering the needs of the individual and the team, building them up in 3 stages in pre-season that I like to plan. And then with that as well, there's one thing doing a pre-season schedule and chaining the sessions, you need players. So ultimately, looking at what we've already got, what the strengths are, what the areas are that we need to improve on, to help the others that we've currently got, but also to get to that next level, you do need to bring in other quality players to aid what you've already got, to give a balance, to allow you to function, to move forward.
Of course, it's similar to what Lewis did this year. It's a club that I look at similar to Horsham, where they've got the foundations right, and everything on top of that will fall into place because then foundations are so strong.
Absolutely.
Do you have a goal for this year? Is it to win the league? Is it to get promoted? Have you sat down with Dom and the board and actually discussed these things, or is it just taking it game by game?
Yeah. I'll never speak out loud regarding in-house objectives.
No, of course, yeah.
But always with myself is to better yourself.
Yeah.
Is to better yourself and show progression through performance and results. So the key things is, again, I want it to be a bright and vibrant environment where players want to come, want to be part of it, want to work, want to learn, want to express themselves. What I'm looking for is, can we be competitive? Can we be progressive? In every training session, can we better the last? In every game, can we better the last on its own merit? So it's about being as competitive as we can, as progressive as we can, you know, and then we just go with the flow. But you know, it's so important. Sometimes when you set targets out loud, it brings an expectation.
Brings extra pressure that you don't necessarily need.
Ultimately, I want us to be better organised, but I want us to be competitive and progressive and see where it takes us. You know, but as long as everyone feels part of it and has an affiliation to the management, to each other and to the club and what we're doing, and they're pulling and pushing in the same direction, we look to build.
So obviously we've been talking for quite a while now, and I'm sure people will have a much greater knowledge of your journey as a football player and a coach. Just to summarise for people watching, can you just put into a sentence, your philosophy, firstly for coaching kids, you know, youth football, and your philosophy on men's football?
I think the biggest thing when it comes to kids, coach them what they need to know, not what you know. You know, get the brilliant basics into them. Get them enjoying their football, a smile on their faces, touches of the ball, constant involvement. Work micro. Start small to go big. That's my thought process on youth football.
And what about the men's game? The senior game?
Yeah, the senior game. Obviously, it's a different type of result. You know, you got to get results. But my beliefs are, I can't just go and get the result. I can't just go and affect that result there and then. What I've got to affect is the individual, the unit, and the team. So what I like to work on, my mindset is the process. You know, working hard on that performance. You know, and putting belief in, this is my way, this is our way. You know, and we've got to make sure that we're the best. We understand what we're doing with what we're doing. 75% making sure it's about us. 25% on the opposition, you know, but it's about trying to impose what we do, but understanding where we are, what we need, and how we're going to do it, and then going with that and being brave with that to go and get that result. But I still work on the process of affecting the performance on the training pitch to try and then get the performances on a match day to get the result. But I'm aware it's a results business, and you need to adapt, be proactive and react to getting what you can regarding that result.
Superb, mate. And just to finish, with these sit-downs, the idea is to just promote Sussex football. You know, it's not to highlight any flaws or, you know, have a dig at anyone like that. But a question that I do like to ask people that we have a sit-down with is, you know, with the current model, both youth, you know, senior level football, is there anything that really stands out that, you know, you think needs to be addressed and improved? Is there, you know, are games getting postponed too much in the winter? You know, is there something with the certain model going from all levels that you think you'd like people to listen to and that could change in the future? Not for necessarily for players right now, but, you know, youngsters that are playing, that might be playing county, Bostik League level football in 10 years. What can we change now that will give them a better footballing experience when they get to, you know, senior football?
I think the biggest thing, I like football involvement, no matter what level. You know, I want football involvement. Young kids, players. I always want to see people playing football because that's me. What you see a lot more now is 3G surfaces, which I'm all for, but I love football on the grass. I love different pitch conditions, pitch dimensions. It brings different challenges that you have to adapt to. But ultimately, I want involvement. I don't want postponements. You know, I don't want kids not playing football, you know, just staying indoors on the Xbox or not having facilities to go to. So we've got a lot of 3G surfaces which you completely understand. For the longevity of a club, but also the longevity of participation.
Yeah, I agree.
And for me, something I saw in Finland is when there is bad weather in Finland, they don't stop. They're used to it. They just carry on everyday life. We have bad weather over here. We have to stop. You know. Yeah. So for me, I'd like to see probably with the 3G pitches, maybe more indoor football centres. But when I say indoor football centres, indoor facilities, because you don't necessarily just have to do football, you could do multi-sport.
And cross over.
You can cross over. So I'd probably like to see more indoor facilities where you've got like 3G surfaces, you know, which I think would be massive on many fronts that we can go into. But when you look around locally, and you've got like Ford Indoor Football Centre, I know Brighton have a dome and pro clubs, but how much exposure do people on the street get to that?
Yeah.
You know, there was the London Soccer Dome. You know, we have St George's Park. How much exposure do we get to go?
Of course.
Have we got any like that regionally?
I don't think so. You know.
Do you know what I mean? Well, I think you can go in there and you can go from your small-sided games. You can go into your 99s. You can go into your 11v11s, etc. Training bases. I'd love to see that. Maybe some of the finance, yes, 3G, but get some more indoor facilities.
Like you say, yeah, I'm completely with you. I think it takes a lot of investment, a lot of funding, which is obviously the problem.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of funding. I get that, and I'm not a money person. However, yes, there's an outlay of finance that you've got to put there for the short term. Of course. However, for me, the longevity is the investment, and sometimes we're so focused on the here and now. Hang on, you talk about creating identities, you think about giving people opportunities in everyday life. Well, they've got to start somewhere, and you don't see the reward straight away. However, you see it further on down the line.
In a perfect world, I think that is exactly what we need.
Absolutely, the perfect world. But for me, I think it's realistic.
I do as well.
Regarding the indoor domes.
It might take a bit of time, but in 10, 15 years, it might be a common occurrence that we have these indoor domes. But right now, I think this year, January, February, March time, there were teams that weren't playing at home for like 6 weeks, 8 weeks without a game, which is a massive problem, especially at under 18 level, where they get to the end of the year and then they're playing 4 games in 10 days to determine their league position. For me, that's not a season. It's something that needs to be addressed straight away. Do we need a winter break? Is that something that you think would work? Maybe 2 weeks off in that period to let the pitches, get to where they need to be, and then we continue.
It's an option, because obviously it's something we're looking to do at the highest level.
Yeah. Do you think it will filter down?
I think it could do. It could do. I understand a winter break. What I like to see is clubs actually working together at this level. Yes. Clubs that have got 3G surfaces. Maybe you can get maybe like an affiliation with like a Bostic club can get an affiliation with obviously a county club, or if a county club's got a 3G surface, they can have an affiliation where they go, if our game's postponed, yes, they've got to cater for it, they've got like 23s and 18s and recreational use, but if there's like spare slots, can we go and get a game on? Because all of a sudden you could have a game at 11, you could have a game at 2, you could have a game at 4.
It's just a matter of getting in and out of the change rooms quick enough.
Absolutely. The only difference is you're not getting that screened on BT or Sky Sports, But ultimately, I think there's ways around it that we can all work together instead of against each other.
Of course, and that's the idea of this platform. Obviously, we just want to create a discussion. A lot of personalities in Sussex, and if anyone does want to come on and give their opinion on stuff, obviously more than welcome to jump on whenever. But John, thank you for today. Thanks for taking the time out. Wish you all the best next year at Horsham. I'm sure, I know for a fact you'll do very well and you'll have all the success in the world. And maybe we'll catch up next season.
Thank you,
John. Cheers, mate.